Rabbit here, and I have with me the first time in a long time, and we've been trying to get this to work for a while, but stuff just keeps coming up, mostly on your end.
It's all
But
on my end, yeah.
yep, but thank you for coming back, Perch.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, and glad to talk to you, and glad things are going down where we can talk.
Yep, but and the main topic we're going to be having today is Dark Crisis, or like I thought we weren't having another crisis.
Yeah.
Ah. And
It's
I'll be honest, I know you're a bit more apathetic towards it. I'm actually so excited, mostly because I'm looking at it from less the marketing and more like another event, and more like a continuation of what Williamson's been doing since Infinite Frontier. I'm just like, I want to see where it goes next. I mean,
yeah. I like I'm burnt out of events, and
oh
I'm burnt
yeah.
out of crises and retcons, and this is a
Mhm.
love letter to the fans and all that stuff.
Oh, that
All that
stuff,
said,
yeah.
Josh Williamson, yeah, he writes a good story, so I'm sure he'll come out with something that'll be fun, entertaining. It's the bigger picture that I'm just exhausted by, but
Oh, and I
I think
agree.
he'll do a good story. I am worried though. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
because they are introducing how many different artists are on this. I think I counted 6 in the last announcement.
Only for the road to. As far as the actual event, it's Daniel, whatever his name is, the guy who's been doing War World,
Yeah,
who's been doing amazing. He's been killing it on that. But
it's good, but I think there's a couple other people in that mix. Anyway,
as far as the artist, they've only mentioned the one. Again, not counting the road to one shot.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure the story will be fine. Again, I'm worried about the art. I hope you're right. There's only one artist, because I do despise when they change up artists in an event.
Oh
DC's been a
boy.
little better at that than Marvel,
I will.
but
I will always give them props with Infinite Crisis. How they made sure they had artists that matched the style, or they did specific sections and everything. I
yeah.
always preferred that. Remember how they started doing when they did stuff with Earth 2, they made sure Jerry Ordway worked on that. And then they brought George Perez in, who matches Phil Hemming's art style. And then they got Ivan Rice, who, again, could still mimic the style to a degree. I mean, when I look
Yeah.
back and reread that, the artwork, the changes stand out, but it doesn't detract.
I hope so. So we'll see. I was talking to somebody 3 days ago in DC who was suggesting there was at least 3 names in there, but hopefully they're talking about tie-ins and other things. So
Yeah, I think
we'll
they're talking
see.
about the tie-ins.
But the
Yeah.
marketing, you know what? Actually, I'm looking at a mail. There's definitely more than one artist on the core event.
Really?
Well, that's what I'm being told anyway. We'll see.
All
I'm
right.
open
Yeah.
for one. Regardless,
Regardless.
my frustrations are about just another event. We're tired of them.
Yeah.
Another crisis. And the marketing. I just think,
Oh, I agree with that.
my God, the marketing is terrible here.
But I will say this, though. If there's one thing that's very different from this, I cannot think of a main event, not an event within the one title, a main event where the main characters are taken off the board. Usually they make sure they get everyone back on the board before the event.
Well, I mean, they're basically saying they're basically pointing to they're going to be back at the end.
Oh, they'll be back at the end. Oh, no. I saw your video earlier today on that.
Yeah.
No, they'll be back at the end. I'm talking about at the start of the event. I cannot think of one of these main events where the characters are dead at the start.
That's true. And I do like
feature.
That's an interesting hook. I think hopefully people calm down a little bit. It's the fear of 5G. So if this entire thing is simply like, look, let's give a chance to this next generation of stars to kind of take the center stage, go on a quest, bring the heroes back to life. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we've seen this in books where like early Teen Titan stories and other things, and Young Justice, we have to step into the shoes of the. So having it as an event, that could be a good story. I hope it is. Like I said, I like Josh Williams, so I think he does good work. And
he's the current Jeff Johns of this writing staple.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. That said, I see a question in the chat. So will Dark Crisis affect the other books? And
as far as I know, no.
Yeah,
they might do some tie-ins, but from what I understand, it's going to be like Death Metal or Doomsday Clock, even, where it's going to be jumping ahead a little bit. That way all the other books currently on can catch up. And then once the event ends, it'll then catch up with it afterwards.
Yeah, which basically gives all the other books the excuse to kind of not pay any attention to it and keep doing what they're doing. Which
I get the pros and cons of it.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. It's not all cons. It is, how long we've heard all the way back to Peter David being frustrated with the Extinction Agenda and other things. He gets his runs interrupted. and
Oh yeah.
big frustration. So I think that's nice, dude. At the same time, it kills momentum for the event when you tell people it's
Oh
not going to
yeah.
affect the current ongoing books. Don't
Look
worry,
what's going on with Justice League
yeah,
Incarnate.
yeah, we'll reset the clock at the end.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
just
I mean, yeah, look at
frustrating. Yeah.
Incarnate, right? There's nothing tying into it. It's its own thing. It's building up to the event, but because it's not being marketed as much and it's not tying into anything, it's not selling well.
Right. And I think once upon a time, like if you go back 30 years, this approach would have worked fine. Secret Wars
Countdown
did
to Infinite
things similar like
Crisis.
this. The chat, yeah, exactly. I think it would have, but unfortunately, for the last 20 years, Marvel and DC, they both trained us to expect these tie-ins and expect this thing. So now we have to reset our thinking. And I'm sounding negative. I'm frustrated with a lot of this, but
Right, I understand.
absolutely,
But I will, yeah,
yeah.
but I
When
will
all
also
is said
say,
and done, I want a good story. Hopefully, we will.
right. But I will also say this though. I think DC has always been better at one thing than Marvel, and that is building up to the event. The last time I recall an event that had proper build up over a good length of time, not a rush. Oh, let's quickly build up to it. Was Secret Empire?
Yeah.
That was the last
Secret
one
Empire
actually.
had a good build. Yeah, I think.
And War of the Realm, but that had too long of a build up. Way too long of a build up.
Yeah, and the payoff wasn't really there when all is said and done for that one. But yeah, I think you're generally right. I mean, the DC the challenges DC has are all of its own making. It's
Yeah.
just it's a mess, and
Oh, it is a mess. It is
and
very much a mess.
it started. I mean, it's been going on for a while. But even if you look at how they brought Bendis in, and then he quickly went and did his
Ugh.
own thing.
Especially once now that Jurgens revealed that they originally, if he had stayed on Action Comics, he would have brought back Conduit.
Well, where do
No,
you begin? You know?
yeah, he just brought that up. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's frustrating, and it's painful to watch this happen because it feels like everything that's going on with DC is self-inflicted. That's the problem.
It really is. But
yeah.
if there's one thing I will give Marvel that I really have been liking lately, it's their throwback miniseries, like the Maestro books.
Yeah, I agree.
And or Silver Surfer or the Symbiote Spider-Man, except for Greg Land's artwork.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of tracing the last 2 weeks, but you're right, and it shows the audience wants it. So here's this thing where, think about this for a second. You've got Silver Surfer Rebirth with the two Rons, Ron Lim, Ron Mars, obviously a classic team from Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah.
It outsold, and now keep in mind small sample size, so maybe all things, but it basically outsold every DC book but one, the
Which
core
was
Batman,
obviously.
Only one, and granted, if we had the full access to the numbers, it may be a couple more than that, but generally speaking, so you've got a throwback book to a writer and an artist who haven't been around for a while, and they're telling a very classic story. So all the people on Twitter is like, well, I hate Ron Mars because of this, or in his Twitter feed.
Couldn't tell from the sales.
Yeah, but I mean, all that stuff's true. How is it then that Mars delivers a story that feels like the 90s and beats DC handedly? So
exactly,
it's a clear message, like, hey, that throwback stuff, it works. And so, bring it in, and it doesn't have to be nostalgia bait. It doesn't have to be, giving up to the fans who are angry. It's just people want a good story. I mean, even Mars said in his feed, it's like he opens up a superhero book and they're just talking now. Where's the action? And it's like,
exactly. And these writers want to write this.
Absolutely. I think here's the other part. You're publishing 80 books a month. You're telling me you can't have like 5 good classic throwback books out of 80?
Exactly.
Hell, just 10%, 8 books out of 80. DC and Marvel, and you do that, kind of tapping into that 80s 90s feel of stuff, you're going to get a lot of people who are happy.
Not all of them work. Look at the Marvels with Kurt Busiek.
Well, yeah, that doesn't feel like an 80s 90s book.
No, it doesn't.
It's and I don't think it's that hard. Again, Ron Mars, Ron Lim put out Silver Surfer, sold huge.
Yep. I mean, now Peter David's Maestro has kind of trickled off since then, but it did well enough to get a trilogy of miniseries. So clearly, it's something that's going.
I mean, why don't you get Tomasi and Jurgens? You put them back, say, hey, here you go. Here's this. We're going to not interrupt you for,
They did. Oh, yeah. And they did bring Tomasi back for Superman and Robin, but did that shock me at how low that sold.
Well, sure, because it didn't matter. This again, they've been telling you it doesn't matter, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not one of the core books. And we're not going to market. We're not going to pay attention. I mean, this is you mentioned things Marvel's doing better. Another thing is just being smarter about how they're marketing this.
Oh
I was
yeah.
so frustrated when they did the announcement for Tom King's new Batman book. It came out in the same hour as the announcement for Sean Murphy's White Knight book.
Oh
Why in
boy.
the world would you announce two books within an hour of each other, both
Especially when you know
Batman?
one people is going to focus on. Maybe they thought, oh, there's Tom King fans and there's Sean Gordon Murphy fans. Let's let them both be happy, not realizing, no, you're going to cause a clash.
Well, yeah, and just space them out by a day, man. What are you doing? Just space them out by a
Exactly.
day. A couple days later, they then announced this new Batman Beyond series, which is also what Murphy's
Uh,
doing in White Knight.
they've already
Like,
said yeah.
why would you in the course of 1 week? Why would you announce
Well,
three
they did.
Batman books?
To be fair, they did set up the Neo years, whatever, last year. They did set that up.
No, they could still put these books out. Just they're
Yeah.
coming out in what April. Like you don't need to announce them all on the same day.
Oh,
Good
I agree
lord,
with that. The announcements, you are absolutely right. Now,
just space it out.
yeah, now I know a friend in the chat. He hasn't said it yet, but Tavia keeps.
Mhm.
I've always seen him asking about, are they going to ever revert John back? I think we're
No,
well past that. We're at the point of no return from that. There's,
never
yeah,
gonna happen. Yeah.
yeah, and there was a point where they could have, but we're well past that. We are well past where they wouldn't. It wouldn't be feasible to even do it. Now you could do what Tomasi did and make him act more like younger John again, act like a kid again to make up for all the rushed aging he did. But as far as turning him back into a 10, 11-year-old, not going to happen.
Never going to happen. The best you're going to get is occasional little mini series dealing with that part of his life, and you may see that, but you're never going to get that back in continuity. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's never going to happen. I should say, by the way, hello to Nerdette. Nerdette sent me some. I got to get back to you. I apologize. I have left everybody in the lurch from the from Nick at
I just want to say,
Dynamite to
I've been
artists,
pestering
everybody.
I've been pestering you so much. That's why I got lucky to get you on today. But I'm
Yeah,
aware she's been trying to get you on, and
it's the move. The move was tough, but
mhm.
finally settling in and
Oh, by
you
the
know
way, I gotta say, was IDW? Have you ever been reading their Star Trek mirror stuff?
I've been reading. Yes, I've been reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, what have you been seeing? I've been loving this mirror war stuff. I mean, it's Tippin, the Tippin brothers or Tipton brothers. They're some of the best writers they've got.
I know I'm gonna probably offend everybody in chat. I'm not the biggest Star Trek guy, but they're solid
Fair
stories.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but I do
But they're
think
solid
those.
stories. You're right. They're solid. You read them. They're entertaining. I did pick it up. I did look at it, and it's solid. And
And
I
I've
think,
talked with J.K.
yeah,
Woodward. He even said they put a lot of thought into trying making sure this doesn't clash with the D Space Nine mirror stories.
yeah, I'm glad to see something working over there because that
Uh,
company's just had so much trouble too.
there is a way. No, there's not, dude. There is
Well,
there.
no,
If you want to
there's
shoehorn it, yes. If you want
there's
to shoe,
storyline ways. Absolutely, there's ways
yes,
to if you're writing a story, but there's no way to do it politically for the publisher. There's no
yeah,
way to do it.
exactly. There's
Yeah.
storylines you can do it, but like I said, I think we've reached a point where it's just not feasible from a case. It's been too long now. People are more used to him now as an older kid and everything. It's just a matter of getting the right writer on him, and I just think Tom Taylor's hit and miss. I'm not saying he's bad at writing John, but he's hit and miss with John.
I think Taylor is interesting because I think Taylor's kind of a stunt writer, and I mean that's going to come off like an insult, and I don't know what to say about that, but he can come up with a high concept idea and he can execute that idea. But if you look at like X-Men Red, and if you look at some of his Marvel
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
the place where he's really succeeded big time is when it's a
right.
limited series and he's kind of
Yep,
boxed in, so he just has to
in his
deliver
own
that one
universe.
idea. Yeah, like Deceased.
DC's.
There's an end you had saw coming, you know.
Oh yeah, but I would say though, the way he handled John there, that's why I thought he would be good at writing John in his own book, because he was writing John very well. But now as I look back at DC's Dead Planet, he was basically writing John just like his dad, which I'm positive is what he wanted to avoid for Son of Kal-El. He wanted to
Yeah, I mean, I
avoid
think
making him a carbon copy of his dad, which I agree. He should not be a carbon copy of his dad.
if you could go back to whatever pitch Taylor sold Didio before he was fired, that eventually became this book, it would have said, "Hey, it's Superman's son. but he's going to try and break out of the shadow of his dad by doing different things. So he's going to be more in line with the people, more
Proactive.
of an activist, and he'll make mistakes that millennials make, and that was the pitch, and that's what we're seeing. And I
Oh
don't,
yeah, I would
I just
agree with
don't
that.
care about that.
Oh, and I agree with that. But and like I say, so the Rising is them selling off superpowers to people. Didn't Lex do that during 52?
Yeah, that's an old storyline. I mean,
Yeah,
they've done
selling
that in
off
a
to
bunch
the
of places.
yeah, they're treating it like it's a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Well, this is the whole, and it cuts both ways. The outrage that was going on with Taylor and
The
John
covers.
Kent, and then the tweet, and then Taylor takes to Twitter, does his thread, and all this kind of nonsense. But all that aside, you knew exactly what was going to happen. Sales aren't that great. I'm sorry, they're just by the numbers. They're not. And then
Right.
this event happens. It gets a bunch of publicity. It spikes that one issue up, and then it goes back to where it was. And I mean,
Yeah.
Taylor, he's got what's the next trick up his sleeve? He needs to deliver something that builds on that audience.
Now it's better than issues. I would say this: all the issues that have been out so far are way better than issue 3 was. Issue 3, it was the lowest it got. It was like not even the top
Yeah.
100s.
Yeah, it's what you're seeing. I mean, we'll see the numbers on issue 7, issue 8. It's just stunts will sell single issues. They don't sell series. You have to have something to
Yeah.
so like people are going, what's next? All right. I mean, what's funny is I'll bet the majority of the audience goes, I don't inherently care if he's bisexual or not. What are you going to do with him?
Oh, I
What's he going to
agree.
do? Is he going to fight some? Is there a big quest that he has, or
Hmm.
is it going to be issues about his relationship? Like, what are we in for?
I agree. Now, I would say this as well. Out of all of those, the people, get back to Dark Crisis, all of those legacies who are going to be taking over, the only one I feel is like it's not prepared at all. I have no interest in following on is Jace, Batman. I have no interest in him because John really has not made me care about him besides because he's not given a reason to why he wants to be a Batman other than we need a black Batman. That seems to be the sole reason why he's doing this. We need a black Batman, and that's not a good reason.
Maybe moving him to New York is going to help. I just
I
they
hope.
got to give him something to do. The problem with Batman, I mean, problem with that with Jace and that whole character is you've got 20 Batmans running around. I mean,
Exactly.
you
You got
have so
literally
much. So
Batman Incorporated.
yeah, what can you do to make it different? So maybe they're saying, well, we'll move cities. I mean, will that be materialistically different? If you want people to care about that character, you got to give him his own identity. You have to do something different. Otherwise, he's
And not
competing with
yep,
20 books.
and not character assassinate the foxes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just
Because
well,
that's what they've been doing.
that's
I
a
can't
dirty
even
shame there.
recognize
Yeah.
the characters. I can't even recognize most of them. And it feels like he started working on Luke, and then decided, oh, I hate Luke because there's too much baggage. Give me a guy who has no baggage. This Jace and Tim guy, I'll name him Jace, and I'll just completely rework his character.
Yeah, it's a puzzling. I mean, I don't know. I think
I
I've
think
said
he
this
hates Luke.
before.
I think he hates Luke. I think he sees Luke as a character that's like he wants to make sure he's Jace is everything Luke isn't.
I'm not even. I mean, I'm not even sure they fully know those characters exist. That's
Oh, he
that's how
used
it
them.
feels
He did
sometimes.
use them during one of the lead ups, like
No,
the next son.
I know they've been in the book, but it just doesn't feel like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's hard to tell where some of this stuff's going, and I
Uh,
look. I think the name Batman. Here's the thing. It's like they want to prove, like, yeah, a black guy can be Batman. I mean, sure. I don't know what that accomplishes. If you prove that, so what? I mean, cool. It
I mean, he
it
has
the
potential to be a good character in the
yeah
right
the
writer's hand. Ridley, though, is not that writer.
I think the Batman name is more of a handicap than a benefit to him. I mean, if it basically forces him always to answer the question, here's how I'm different from Batman. Whereas if you gave him some different name, he could just be his own hero. And I
Exactly.
think that the legacy they're trying to say, look, it's Batman doesn't have to be a white guy. Okay,
Whoop
cool,
de doo.
but what does that mean exactly? Who make this guy a hero? And otherwise it's the same thing Miles Morales falls into sometimes. It's like, well, he's not the real Spider-Man. It's like that whole argument is a bad argument to be in. Just
Exactly.
let him do something.
Yep. Now, you and I were talking before we got started, and
Mhm.
I'd like to bring up in the chat. Everyone keeps on saying, "Oh, they're changing Superman and making his son and all this other stuff to try and because there's a secret lawsuit that's being hush hush going
Mm.
on." okay, could you right here make it clear to people how this lawsuit is? Because as far as I keep telling them, it got settled long ago. It was declared. They
The
sold
Schuster
off the
lawsuit, you
right.
mean? Yeah.
The Schuster and Siegels. They sold off their rights well before they even tried. It just took forever for them to find to prove it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that lawsuit's done. There's always other things, but here's the thing. I think I'll argue it from the other end.
Hmm.
If you're saying they're going to change the characters in a way to duck the lawsuit, it wouldn't work. We've seen a
Yeah,
lot of examples of this where the courts would say it's materialistically the same thing. Okay, you changed his name, you changed his haircut, but clearly you're still working from the legacy of the original character. It wouldn't hold up.
yeah. Putting him in a T-shirt won't do it.
Yeah, it's just it won't it doesn't work like people think, and that's not how trademark stuff tends to work.
Yeah,
So because the courts aren't stupid. I mean, if this was really the
exactly.
plan, the courts would look at this, go, we see exactly what you're doing. You're trying to tweak it a little bit so you can duck responsibility. People get punished for that. It wouldn't
Yeah,
that wouldn't hold up. So I think
exactly.
I think it's simplest answer is the easy answer. They're just trying to see kind of like way back. You have to be old to remember this. But Simpsons did a parody of Poochie the dog, and you've
Yep.
seen memes of this stuff.
I have to go.
That's
My planet needs me.
yeah. The reason they're doing this is just saying like it's pandering to try and get kids new audience in the cheapest, laziest way,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly. And
it's dumb. It's so dumb. It never works.
it really is. And I would also say that people always want to say, "Oh, the Ditko case is going to blow the door wide open if they win." First of all, they're not going to win. Disney's going to pay them off. But second, even if they did, it wouldn't change set any precedent because you got to remember there's a huge gap of decades between the creation of Superman and Spider-Man. The whole law that they're utilizing plays off of how many years have passed since the creation of the character. Not
Yeah,
so as far as we know,
yeah.
Superman they played their hand. Now a couple decades later, now it's Spider-Man's time to have the hand played.
No, it's. I mean, people are mixing a lot of things together here in the same case. I mean, the Ditko one you can predict a mile away. I mean, it's the
Oh
same
yeah,
attorney. It's going to be a
yeah.
payout,
That's the other thing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Toberoff would never keep hush hush. He would never keep hush hush. So people saying, "Oh, it's quiet, it's under the radar," they would never. Toberoff would make it a. He would take a blowhorn, a blowhorn, and going like, "Hey, I'm suing DC again."
yeah. No, it's. Look, I think it. Well, I mean, look, over the last 20 years, so many people have taken runs at Disney over all kinds of things, and they
The
always
Kirby
end
estate,
either.
Toberoff again.
Yeah, I mean, Disney comes on hard, and they either lawyers crush it and they just cause people to spend into where they can't, or Disney settles up and pays a little bit more and adds some credits, and it goes that direction. And I think with Ditko, the estate has enough money that they're not going to collapse with the lawyers. And I
Right.
think Disney doesn't want the bad press anyway, so they're just going to play this out a little bit. A check will be written, and then we'll stop talking about it.
Now, wait, does Disco Estate have more money than the Kirby Estate did?
I don't know which had more, but they have enough to last. I guess is
Right.
the best way to put it.
Yeah, but again, I just hear this stuff and it just drives me nuts trying to talk with these people who keep on saying, like, oh no, it's definitely this. Like, here are the facts, guys. Nope, they don't care about the facts.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's more exciting. I mean, certainly
Oh, it
to
is.
I would love it if there was secret things going on. That'd be awesome. But in general, I mean, these are just dumb things where lawyers are getting rich. I mean, that's what's going on.
Exactly.
I it's funny because I've heard the argument of like, well, they're trying to get out of paying royalties. Look, I mean, DC screws people with royalties all the time. I mean,
Hmm.
now for no lawsuit, no change of characters, they frequently forget to send people checks or they make you chase
Oh
them.
yeah. Now,
I
wasn't it, if I remember right, wasn't it better under Levitt's pen?
way better, absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause
Levitt's paid
he
his
fought.
bills.
He always fought for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
'Cause I've never,
Levitz was a
yeah,
solid guy to both the retailers and to the creators in that regard. He did pay his bills. I'm sure things still fell through the cracks, but it was a pretty good system.
yeah.
Um,
He might have screwed some people he didn't like over it, but that goes with anyone.
no, I mean I was talking to somebody 2 days ago
Hmm.
about this, and they were having to chase getting the check, and they were like, "At what
Yep.
point do I need to bring a lawyer into the picture? Because it's been
We're
6 months."
not. Yep. Oh boy, we're not going to talk about Bob Harris. Let's not talk about him.
Well,
Bob Harris was not the main guy that was in Levitt's position. Completely
no,
different.
no, but Bob Harris also, I think, is incompetent. But that's
Yeah. Now, here's something else. I've noticed Jeff Johns has a lot of books coming out, more than he's had before. He has, especially if you look over his Geiger 80 page giant, he has Junkyard Joe, Redcoat. He's going to be doing the Zero issue and then co-writing Flashpoint Beyond. And he still has his JSA or Stargirl book coming out
Hmm.
eventually. So it feels like, do you think the stuff with Ray Fisher maybe not torpedo his career, but at least made him keep his head down for a while, and that's where he got all the time for writing?
I don't. I mean, I don't know. I think. Well, first off, we're seeing a bunch of stuff get announced, but I don't. We don't
Hmm.
necessarily have dates for all this stuff. So
True.
I don't think any of this stuff is coming really quickly. But I think when all is said and done, we'll look back on it and go, well, this is about the same amount Jeff Johns normally writes, maybe a little bit more than we've seen over the last 2 years, just with the movies and the pandemic and everything else. He slowed it down, but I'm not sure it was Johns that slowed down or moved away, or DC just was so
True.
disorganized they weren't returning his
Uh,
calls.
okay, but I'll say though, I am definitely looking forward to his Geiger stuff. It's been one of the best stuff I've read in a long time.
Yeah, I love it. I think Gary Frank also
Gary
is doing a
Frank, and they're
hell of a
getting
job
Brian
on it.
Hitch. You're having Brian
Yeah.
Hitch doing Redcoat. Oh, tell him his asking. So which omniverse linearverse is teach? It's an omniverse. The
All
linearverse
of
is
them at
part.
once.
The linearverse is part of the omniverse, just a separate Earth or whatever in the omniverse. Because remember, the omniverse is supposed to be a multiverse of multiverses. Yeah,
I,
I actually pay attention to the details on this stuff. It feels
it's
like a lot of other people don't.
no the lot. Well, that's a lot of people don't because it's so goddamn confusing. That's
It's easy. How is it not easy?
why it's too much.
It
I think for a lot of
never
people
going to
it's way
happen,
too much
Tavia.
work.
Never going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think
I
so.
would say no. Jeff Johns is better than a lot of
Well,
the other writers who use comics to get into Hollywood. They do it because they just want to get into Hollywood. They don't care much about comics. No, he got into Hollywood because he wants to actually make sure comics are done well in Hollywood.
and he wants to get paid. I mean, I think Johns though. So I think it's more likely Johns takes back control of DC in a sense than say John Kent de-aging. I'll give you
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yes, I think that is more likely to happen, but I think he'd have to really lose everything in Hollywood to come back.
I think that where you could see a scenario playing out, and this is total fantasy booking and unlikely.
Hmm.
But the Discovery merger happens. They're trying to figure out what to do with things. Discovery decides the best option is to spin it out, which I think is a
Hmm.
pretty likely scenario.
Hmm.
And then Jeff Johns is the one who's like, I'm going to be the shepherd in the same way like Axel Alonso is doing AWA, just a bigger scale with DC. He's going to
Hmm.
position the company to get some media investors and say we're going to have a tighter synergy by how we license, how we get stuff onto Hollywood, and in that world, Johns would be one of the people who could do that and might
Do you
get
think
back.
that's why he established Mad Ghost?
Maybe. I mean, it's possible.
Yep.
So,
Oh, here's something else. What do you think is even more likely of an odds? Jeff Johns getting back control of DC, or him bringing Easton on to do something at Mad Ghost?
um, I don't know. I think I have. I mean, there's too many pieces to that. I mean,
I don't think he'd be willing to do it without damaging what he has. I mean, look at what happened when Ethan posted that selfie. You had all the Snyder bros out there trying to say, see, this is why we should get rid of Ethan and bring back Zach. Not Ethan, bring back Jeff and get rid of Jeff and bring back Zach.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that's Twitter trolling, really. I mean,
Well, yeah, but
I don't. I have no idea. I mean, isn't he making? I mean, Ethan's making money. I don't know. The problem is, I look at it like, what would be in it for anyone? So I think if
yeah,
Ethan's making money on his own, what would be in it for him to go do that? And for
just to
Jeff
work with his
Johns,
best buddy. Yeah.
but what would be in it for him if he's if he's trying to make this
Yeah,
thing work and
it's
he's
no good.
dodging these allegations from Fisher and everything else? Like, would he want to do? So like, there's just too many pieces where it just doesn't benefit anyone
Oh, I agree.
to do this. I mean, yeah, if Ethan's making money, I don't know. That would be like saying, I think I'll make less money and do this thing over here. That would be weird.
True. That's very true. Now, different note. You got your copy of Plot Holes, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, same here. I've loved it too, but I do feel people went a little overboard about how the packaging went. Would you say, how that kind of like I know there's some people say, "Oh, look how bad it was." Like it's his first crowdfunding. It's like,
It was, and I think the service that didn't do it all right. I mean, I think some people got it fine. Mine was packed just fine.
yeah, mine was just fine too. I have no dents whatsoever on mine. I know some people got theirs, but at least he responded. But it feels
Yeah,
like so many people were acting like, why didn't he respond immediately? It's like, it took a while to prove, especially when you have like, if you have one or two people near the problem, that's one thing you can try and keep under the rug. Once you have a whole bunch of people, that's usually where you start to speak out.
yeah. I mean, where did the people complain? Did they immediately complain on Twitter, or did they send a
Yep,
mail to
Twitter,
whoever? You know,
Twitter. It was
no, no.
really
But I
on
mean, when
Twitter.
they say why did it take him so long to respond? I don't know. Did anybody write him, or did you just go to Twitter
Yeah,
first?
and
Like,
he's not even on Twitter. He's barely on Twitter.
well, I mean, it's not him. It's kind of his assistant, his person who does that account for him. But
Yeah.
it look, I think this stuff was. I think the reality of Sean is, I think that he's got a target on his back from
Hmm.
both sides, so to speak.
Unfortunately.
And so when people see an opportunity to take a swipe at him, they do it. And I wish they would just stick to their own business. I was disappointed to see some of the people who took shots at him. I thought they
Oh
were cheap
yeah, there was
shots.
one or two I can say in particular who said, "Hey, why didn't you do it our way?"
I mean, just mind your own business and ship your comic good, and just shut the fuck up. You know?
Oh, exactly. I mean, uh, oh, what other thing? Back to funny thing that was happening in Just League Incarnate that I wonder if you noticed. The
Mm,
whole notion that the Great Darkness is behind everything. Didn't they reveal that about Pandora just last event? To which, in that regard, I say the Great Darkness corrupted Pandora. I think that's the explanation for that. Plain and simple, boom, quick fix. But that's
yeah.
not the first time that happened. The first time I recall that was done? Death of the New Gods, where the source was behind it.
Yeah, I don't like the mystery person behind the curtain that's been pulling the strings all along. I hate those plots. I just
Yeah,
wish.
but it was really weird because we now know the source is the antithesis of the Great Darkness. But apparently the source was the initial manipulator.
Yeah,
What?
I don't like these kind because it's a retcon is what's
Yeah,
going on. I mean, you're just
yeah.
basically trying to
I
say,
got
the
I
thing
got
you
what
thought you knew wasn't the thing that was really what you
now
should have known. It's like,
I get what Scott was going for because he at least built up a lot more than just simply saying they were behind it. He actually came up with the Forger, Perpetua tied into the Anti-Monitor and everything. It made a lot more sense when Scott did it because he did more than just simply do lip service.
I mean, he had a lot more comics to do it in. I think, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
whereas
yeah,
Williamson, if he just simply says it ties back into Pandora and he's just piggybacking on what Scott did, I can accept that, especially since he's tying into, much like Jeff Johns did with the prophecy of the Blackest Night, he's tying into the Great Darkness from long ago.
yeah. I don't like this stuff. I just again, it's the reason they're doing is to say, hey, remember
I
that
know.
really super big threat that happened before, that really big one. Well, guess what? This threat's going to be even bigger because it turns out
Yeah,
the
I
threat that
meant
happened
Perpetua.
before.
Yes, yes.
That's I just hate that stuff.
Yep. Now, why is Pariah evil? Plain and simple, he went nuts because he never got over what happened to his multiverse. That he's even though he didn't technically cause it because the antimatter said, "Oh, your thing did." Technically, he did one of the safer ways of observing the dawn of time without causing the backlash.
Yeah.
But the antimatter took advantage of it because he used antimatter energy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so I can see that he's gone insane now. Do you think he's truly in control of the Great Darkness, or do you think the Great Darkness is using him?
I don't even I
I'm
don't
sorry,
even
I'm focusing
I'm
on
not
that
even sure I
stuff.
care. No, I mean, I think the Great Darkness is probably using him from a storyline perspective. I think we'll get that moment in the comics, and I think that it won't matter in the grand scheme of things because
True.
it's like there's a big misty villain. And you're right, it's Perpetua, right? That
Yeah,
character.
I don't know why I said Pandora. I think it's because it's a P word and it's so
Well,
similar.
because we had a Pandora in the New 52 that was going to be the big bad kind of,
And then she
or
got killed up like Rorschach, and even
yeah.
that didn't make any sense. Why did Manhattan kill her and kill Night Owl and Metron when in the end it didn't tie in at all to what he was doing in Doomsday Clock?
Because reasons I don't know.
That's one of the few times where I'm like, Jeff, what did you have in mind?
No, that's the problem with this stuff. I mean, it's very formulaic now. It's like kill off a character, a shocking way, reveal that the evil you thought you knew is not really the evil, but there's a bigger evil.
But
Kill off a couple main characters and then
could Abyss
bring them
be
back.
connected to the Great Darkness? I could see possibly, but I don't think so. I know Shadow War is definitely leading into it, especially what's going on with Deathstroke, which, I gotta say, Flashpoint Beyond #0, I love that they brought back the chalkboard. I miss that chalkboard, don't you? That Jeff
Yeah,
Johns would
yeah.
do. And the fact they
No.
say, what is up with Deathstroke? He's not acting like himself. Could it be a fake? I think it's a Deathstroke from another Earth.
Yeah, I think so too. By the way, I think that this is
He's acting way
definitely.
too out of character by the
Yeah,
time they got to Limbo.
I agree. I don't think this is the Deathstroke we think we know.
Yep. Now, do you think Flashpoint Beyond is going to be pre Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate, or do you think Darkseid used the Omega Sanction and sent Flashpoint Batman back away?
The lousy thing about it, here's what I fear. I think the stuff that Johns is doing with this Flashpoint series, I suspect doesn't tie into anything.
Really? Because some of the chalkboard stuff does look like it's tying in.
I hope so. I hope it actually ties in the story. But my concern is another kind of death metal doomsday clock kind of scenario, or metal doomsday clock, sorry, scenario where you've got kind of ideas in theory should be connected together, but they're not, and they're kind of going their own direction. And then some poor writer has to tie it together later.
If nothing else, I think Jeremy Adams and Tim Sheridan will connect it more when they do the actual event.
Yeah, I'd be. My suspicion is it's not going to connect really at all. So
Yeah, but he died. He's dead.
yeah, the Deathstroke at the end of the
The
yes,
Dark Multiverse is dead. Yeah.
that one died. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and any opinion on the CB article about the 5G connecting to the Dark Crisis? Well, I think that goes without saying, but it's not doing it the way that they originally had in mind. And that's the other big thing. I want to ask you, Perch.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Dark Crisis came about after the deal left and after all the stuff that was planned up went by the wayside? But obviously, Scott Snyder wasn't going to stick around the whole time, so Williamson came up with what the playoff was afterwards. Or do you think this was always part of the plan?
Oh no, it's definitely not always part of the plan. I mean, but the plan itself. I mean, look, a lot of people got their news for what 5G was through Bleeding Cool. Bleeding Cool
Yep.
was not accurate in their story. No matter how many times they say they were accurate, they were not. And because a lot of people did videos and theories off of Bleeding Cools, there was somebody who made up a bunch of information, and then we all reacted to that bad information. So Didio, I mean, I'm now, and the thing is, I've done streams with Jeff Thorne and others
Mhm.
who were, doing pitches for Didio as part of
Oh, yeah.
5G. There's been a very consistent story about what 5G was going to be, which was like Age of
Editorial
Apocalypse.
controlling things more.
Well,
from
no,
what I
but
heard.
the actual story was going to be an Age of
Right.
Apocalypse style storyline where, the main heroes died or went away or something happened and the young heroes had to step up. That was the
So
plan.
it was never
It was
meant to be
originally pitched.
permanent.
Yeah, and it was never meant to be permanent, and that was always kind of that was what we've heard this now from multiple people.
But
That
not
was
everyone's
the
heard it.
basic idea.
But
Yeah.
it's
So
just now. I will say though, I do feel bad for Dan Jurgens. How apparently he did all this plan for the stuff for Generations and 5G. He planned out a lot of stuff,
yep.
and then it just got we're trimming it all to almost nothing and putting it in Generations and not using it afterwards. I feel so bad for him.
No, I mean but that happens all the time. I mean, I agree. I feel bad for him, but it also happens all the time.
Yeah, but now it's like not even going to ever be acknowledged because who cares about the linear verse, which, from what I understand, was not the full intent. It was a general idea, and boy, that thing relieves so many problems. I mean, Tristan and I a while back did a video. We never got back to the second part where we went over that timeline. And as it started off, I was fine for a lot of it, but as it got closer to the 90s, I'm losing my shit over the changes and everything. Like saying, wait, Donna Troy becoming, the whole Who is Wonder Woman happened right around the time of before New 52? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
That made zero sense. I'm just like, what? And then so many other things that kept getting jumped around, and I'm just like, what?
No, I mean I agree. But what you're seeing now is that a number of writers, a number of people who are coming into DC were told to pitch for a certain concept. This concept is big event. This again, Age of Apocalypse like thing. It was meant to be this Generation 5, and it was meant to paint a picture of the future of DC. And the plan was
Yep.
always like, what sticks we will keep going with. So if Yara Floor and gets a big following, then cool, we'll keep, we'll do a Yara Floor book, just like Future State Gotham seemed to, made some sales, so they do a Future State
Yep.
Gotham ongoing title. That was what was supposed to happen. So what you're seeing now is, and same thing with the Future State mini event and all these other pieces, they're just trying to play off some of the stuff that a bunch of people paid money for and they invested work in,
Yeah.
while the company sits in somewhat of limbo waiting
Mhm.
to find out what happens with Discovery. So they're killing time to some extent using ideas that they've been
Oh,
percolating
that
on
explains
for
why
years.
War World still played out, or why Fear State played off of like a different direction than what Future State claimed was going to happen. Where instead of Crane giving himself in, nope, he decided I'm going to do my own thing.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So you're seeing kind of a bunch of pieces thrown together. I think right now the thing that hurts at DC is you do not have a strong editor in chief, a
They have a visionary was Williamson at least, so that's at least better than nothing. But
well, I mean, yeah, writing some stories, but you don't have a captain on that
no,
ship.
you
It's
don't.
just kind of sailing in every random direction. Until you get a captain in that ship, then
Say what
it's
you
going to
will, the
continue.
deal was a captain. Say what you will about the guy.
He was, yeah. I mean, he obviously his management style was, was such that he became his own worst enemy. But the company needs a captain, whether it's a person like a Didio or a personality like Jim Shooter
Mhm.
or just somebody has to come
Not
up and take the
Bendis.
reins. Yeah.
It's just not Bendis. It felt like Bendis was running the show a bit too much for that point in time.
Well, I mean, yeah, Bendis just came in and was like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And he just started carving up his side of the world, and it didn't align with anyone
Derailing
else's. And
continuity like crazy. I mean,
yeah,
and
which was
did
what
you
he did at
notice?
Marvel as well, to be fair.
Did you notice future and future Flashpoint Beyond's little jab at the Legion on the chalkboard?
I'm sure. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for
Jeff
sure.
Johns clearly put in a jab in there saying about how they don't remember and they need to remember.
I think and this is one of the problems with DC and both people I like and people I don't like. There's a pettiness there, and this is
Mhm.
true of DC dating back to the '70s. They have always had, even when Khan was there, a history of letting kind of personal grudges and things go out on the page. And I do
Yep,
agree. It was a funny jab, but at the same time, as a company, you wish this is like more professional than this.
true, but for all we know, though, Jeff Johns could be also planting something or hoping someone will come in and try and get the Legion back on straight. Because I'm sorry, what Bendis did to the Legion was
It's
I can't.
uninteresting.
Yeah, especially having him be, oh, John, you suggested making a United Nation. You're the true Superman. Your father's just a placeholder until you become of age, or you were born and became of age.
But
What?
that's a Bendis trope. I mean, if you look at how he was in Marvel, he would do little bits of like, oh, it's actually Jessica Jones's daughter. It's going to be the most important hero, better than Captain America. And it's like, dude, just write stories for the people you have. You
Yeah, but
don't
it feels
have
like
to
he's
constantly
jumping.
do this nonsense.
Yeah, but it feels like he's actually jumping through towards that a lot faster than he did at Marvel. It felt like he had a bit more push than he
He
did
had
at Marvel.
sales at Marvel, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, that's the thing. He had sales at Marvel, but he was taking slower to ever get to that point when he never did. Whereas DC, he's just jumping hurdles.
yeah, well, the burnout happens so fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh boy,
it's
we got a bot. Hold on.
oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
No, I'd love to see some of this stuff get repaired, but again, it's not going to happen unless you get somebody who comes in and says, "All right, the buck stops here,"
Mm-hmm.
and they push it. That has to occur. And until that
Definitely
occurs, we're going to continue to live with this nonsense.
agree. Now, Substack. Do you think that's actually going to do well? Do you think it's going to implode? Because I'll be honest, I have almost zero interest in most of the Substack stuff. I have more interest in Geiger than I have in almost anything that ever got announced. It's just like, so create our own work. Pfft, don't care. That's
Yeah,
why should I bother?
yeah, I think it's. I mean, Substack's spending money to try and get viewers right now. They're trying to build up a user base, and they're trying to build it up everywhere with news and with comics and blogs. And I mean, their goal is to just be able to go back to their investors and say,
They
"We
just
got a
got
lot of
Morrison
users."
now.
They got Morrison, but none of the comic stuff is moving the needle right now. I mean,
It's not.
that's why
I have no interest.
you see Whacker, who's over there now, who's going to try and help edit and kind of get some stuff organized. So it
Now,
feels like. But I mean,
King's method was interesting though, giving away some of those stuff for free. I'm like, okay, that actually, because that was actually an interesting book from what I've been hearing.
there's stuff out there. It's just nothing there has really blown me away from any of the creators. I think I've
Yeah,
seen most, if not all of it, but it's just not it's not terribly compelling stuff. And shocking if you get a bunch of creators and you basically take off any restrictions, any editorial, anybody kind of pushing them to get something accomplished. It's like, oh, what do you know? Stuff just lingers and doesn't go anywhere.
exactly, exactly. Just like when you have an artist write, draw their and write their own thing, and they have no editor, they're just going to meander and take forever. But here, I think the biggest question is going to be who's going to swoop back in and scoop them up when Substack inevitably falls apart. Who's going to be the one to swoop back in and say, "Come back to us"?
Oh, I think
I'm fearful Marvel's going to get more of them than DC.
I think whoever has the money. I mean, I think as we get into year two and some of the bonuses, stop getting paid out and other things,
Mhm.
then yeah, I think you're gonna see you're gonna see Marvel and DC write some checks, and you'll see them flow right back there again. Yeah,
Yep. But again, I have a weird feeling that Marvel might do more than DC because
well, they
again,
got more
Marvel.
money.
Oh yeah, they do. DC, they're stuck with until the merger fully happens.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we'll see how it works. We haven't seen a breakout hit with Substack. I think
Yeah,
they've got about another 6 months, and then something does need to actually happen there. For
I would
if
agree.
if we go into the summer and it's still just like you know, uh,
Meandering.
yeah, just a fan page basically. That's a bad sign.
Yeah, because when you have Scott Stein and all this stuff, they got all these big names thinking people are going to follow through. Not many people are following them through because yes, people will buy the stuff if they do a mainstream comic with their name on it. Yes, doing a creator own book, you get lucky with some of them. Again, when you do it at Image promotes it. Or at least they do their own promotion there. I'm not getting that much of that promotion at Substack, from in other books. It's like I barely know about it unless it's on Newsarama.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, but a lot of this stuff isn't working. You look at the Comixology stuff. Scott has a bunch of books over there. Some are pretty good. I like Clear quite a bit, but
Mhm.
again, it's not.
They're
It
playing it
doesn't have
safe
any.
too, though. It's like this is the ideas they've had. I mean, again, I bring back Geiger. This is exciting stuff. Very good character stuff. Great artwork, and they've got some great artists on their books too. But it's like that's what you're coming up with. But like I said before, I do think Tom King's book. I'm blanking on the name right now, but that's one of the more interesting ideas out of all of them. King is the one who came up with one of the better ideas.
I think the pitch is, but it just again, nothing there says like like Geiger. Geiger's got a good concept. The material has been good. The comic reads nice. It's great. Mark Millar does great stuff as
Oh
well.
yeah.
I think he comes out with King of Spies is an amazing series. So
Oh, I
he can
want
every time.
I want Brosnan in the adaptation. I think everyone
Yeah,
does.
absolutely, absolutely. I hope
Yep,
so. No, I think that there's some people who can get it done, but I haven't seen anything, and I just haven't seen anything coming out from Substack that's going to move the needle. And again, Scott has some good stuff out with Comixology, but again, there's no buzz at all. And Tevye is
exactly.
saying, why doesn't Substack work with us YouTubers? I mean, I don't know that.
It's up to the creators, and I don't think they want to.
I mean, the creators are just getting a check. I don't know that. The thing is, I don't know that any of the creators are looking at it going, "Hey, I need to hustle." I mean, they haven't before. Somebody else at the company used to have to do that. So
Kind of
until
like
we hit,
early Image in that regard when it came to the artists just sitting on their butts and getting the art out when it was done.
yeah, somebody hopefully will emerge, but it's got to happen in the next 6 months. If we go 6 months and then Substack still has no buzz, then I
Yeah.
yeah, it's done.
Now, with Mark Waid on World's Finest, do you think there's going to be something similar to Marvel with their throwback minis? Because it's pretty much he's doing a throwback on his own, or do you think that it's just going to fail?
I mean, the problem he's going to have is just
His reputation.
finding getting room. I mean, it's like there's so many like how does he stand out at DC? He's launching this title. They've got multiple events going on. You've got most of the entire lineup on Batman. You have Dark Crisis that you've been talking about. How does Wade's book get any kind of air, any kind of oxygen in that world? That's a problem for him. Is how does he actually get an audience in there?
Exactly. And he can't just rely on his name. His name is a bit, I won't say fully tainted like others, but it's kind of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I
I'm gonna be getting it. I'll be getting it. I mean, that teaser Torian Detective 1050 piques my interest a little bit.
yeah, I think there'll be some good stories. I think, talking with Scott Snyder and seeing some of the things he's written and listening to his words, I mean, part of what they wanted to do with death metal was free it up so people could tell stories out of
Yep.
continuity, whatever it was, get some attention and go with it. And that was a good idea. But the problem is the comic readers, comic customers, they're not trained that way. They've been
Right.
trained
I mean,
to,
I'm one
you
of the
know,
few who is, but not everyone.
no, no, not the bulk of their audience. So the challenge there is everybody looks to events, they look to these tentpole things that go on, and if you're
Hmm.
not doing that, then they say, "Well, does it matter?" And so when you're DC and you're saying, "Hey, we're doing Death of Justice League, and we're doing Death Dark Crisis," and over there you've got, Batman's coming back to Gotham, and something's going to happen there, and we'll have another Joker attack or whatever. The problem is if you're not one of those big things, you've
Hmm.
trained your audience to say, "Well, it doesn't really matter." You can kind of
True.
ignore it.
But I will
And
also, yep,
yeah,
sorry.
key
Go
fans
ahead.
like you, by the way, are going to read it and enjoy it, and that's great. But the company has to prove that these things matter.
Yep. Now I will say this: the one thing that has been surprising me is a lot of those DC Universe Infinite free books they've been doing. Like the Peacemaker book and Harley Quinn Eat Bang Kill tour. The fact that they're actually still selling very well, they're giving away for free on DC Universe Infinite, which is a subscriber base, but they're actually selling pretty well. Not gangbusters, but still decently well, like in the top 100s of the DC sales. And you're like, you would think it would not sell at all. So
No,
it tells you
I
that
I,
there might
I
be a bit
agree.
of
I
an
mean,
idea.
they've carved out a little audience. I think, man, they just the heartbreak at DC more than Marvel for me at least is that you have some stuff that's actually really good,
Hmm.
and it is completely flying under the radar.
Jeremy
And
Adams' Flash, the fact it's one of the most pirated of the books, right up there with Action Comics, which is amazing. Now, Action Comics, I can blame on Bendis. I can totally blame it on Bendis for driving up the piracy stuff. But Flash, Williamson's run was good, and Adams' run is amazing.
But yeah, well, and so talking with Philip Kennedy Johnson, what, a couple months ago, and
Hmm.
then seeing his comic, it is a good comic, and it's a good epic story,
It
and
is.
it gets zero marketing from DC. It just literally, there's nothing that they're not pushing any of this, and it's a good story. There's really good stuff out there, and it's just not. Nobody cares. And
I agree.
at the company, nobody cared. And like you hear so many stories that have been public of, hey, I have a pitch, I have something to follow up with at DC, and nobody will call me back. It's been 6 months
Exactly.
and nobody will call me back. And then you go onto Twitter and you see like Chris Conroy over there going, man, I hate answering emails, and man, I'm just going to get high tonight. And you're like, dudes,
Uh,
what are you doing? You've got really good talent putting out really good books. Somebody needs to solidly go kick Javins and Jim Lee straight in the ass for not promoting Warworld
again,
Saga all over the
yeah.
place.
And again, Jeremy Adams. You have look at Ram
Sure.
Viven. He's getting more work at Marvel now.
It. Jeremy Adams' book is great.
But
I
at
agree.
least he's going to be working. At least Adams is going to be working on Flashpoint Beyond and the Road to the Dark Crisis, which is going to definitely get him a big boost.
Yeah, just get some of these books up, promote them, get them, give them some love, spend some of that marketing dollars, do something to
Exactly.
showcase that these books matter. Because I mean, literally, the stuff that's going on in Action Comics right now
Oh
is
yeah.
an omnibus, and they absolutely, by the way, to Nerdette, yeah, they do have a marketing budget to promote it. They actually have decent cash to do it, and also they
And they're
have
putting
people.
it more into the progressive stuff.
Well, hell, if they want to, they could reach out. Like, why aren't they going to Nerdette's channel and saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, we're going to line up an interview." DC says we're going to line up an interview with you every 2 weeks for some people on
Ooh,
these books because we got to get the word out. That
I'd
would
love to do
cost
that
them
too. Yeah.
in you as well, and but just like that would cost them $0, and, and it would
Yeah.
get this stuff
Just send
going.
us a few review copies or something.
I mean, just anything, literally. I mean, anything. It is
And you
crazy.
think what you think with people who have handled, like Daniel Cherry when he was handling that stuff, you think he would have at least known from how they used to do stuff with like the Twitch people. You think they would have had a better idea of doing that, but no.
Yeah, I mean, I've said on my chat. I mean, I had a relationship with Cherry. I talked with Cherry. I that's the same thing. Like, what's going on with marketing? It's like, oh man, it's just so broken. You can't get anything done. It's It's
I'm
like,
funny.
but you're in charge.
Yeah, now I would say it's one of the things. Funny thing is you brought about the whole focus on Batman 24/7. Funny thing is I've noticed that even when it comes to YouTubers, Batman does better than most other characters when you talk about them. Have you
Well,
ever noticed that? Even
well,
just talking
sure,
on YouTube, you can get more views if you talk about Batman than anything else.
but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The company itself is that's the bulk of their line. That's all they talk
Oh, I
about.
know.
So, if the people out there who aren't, heavily invested into comics, that's all they're hearing about. So that's what they're going to search around on YouTube. It's if you just again get to Wes, get to Nerdette, get to the word balloon guy, get to you, get and just
Oh, I'm having
start.
him on tomorrow. I'm having him on tomorrow.
That's perfect, but just start with a
Yeah, John Son's a
focused,
great guy.
relentless, assault. Like, hey, the new issue of Action Comics is coming up. Let's make sure Philip Kennedy Johnson does, the rounds on 5 or 6 channels.
Now,
Push
Chris,
it.
sometimes they do like when with Jeremy Adams, he told me wait until till March before I can reach him out for an interview because he's being slammed by all the stuff after the Flashpoint announcement. Which I'm like, all right, I'll wait till March. So, but I think that's sometimes other thing. I think sometimes they put a little
But that's
moratorium.
but it's not the thing is all the interviews I've got, it's always the creators that reach out.
We're too opinionated.
It's but it's just it'd be very easy to do. Very,
Hmm.
very easy to do. But I mean, you have people who are like, well, the best, hey, let's what are we gonna do for Tom King's new Batman series? I don't know. We'll reach out to where do they go? IO9 to get an
Yeah.
article? Like some
Who
stupid
goes
like
there anymore? Who even goes? Now,
nobody.
I will
Nobody's
just say
going
this.
there.
Newsarama is still one of the few places I feel I can go to still. I mean, it's not as good as it used to be. Still way better than CBR, and it does feel like at least they get some good news announcements by compared to CBR and all the others.
Just get this stuff out there and get these people where the comics are. I mean, it's nice that, for example, Tom Taylor got a CNN interview that helped sell that
Hmm.
one issue of Superman. But if you
Hmm.
want to sell ongoing issues of Superman, you got to get Tom Taylor on some of these other channels.
Well,
Get
I've
him on
tried
the Word
reaching out.
Balloon guy.
I
Yeah.
have tried reaching out to some of these guys, and unfortunately, with someone like Tom Taylor, the only way I could do that is hope he has his Instagram messages open. Otherwise,
Well, but this is just like, look, if you're an editor, this is one idea of a million ideas. All I'm saying is you got to promote these books because you have people doing really good work and it's flying under the
oh
radar.
yeah, exactly. Again, Jeremy Adams. If you've seen him on mine or Nerdette's channel or Comic Boom's channel, the guy is so full of energy. He has all these ideas in his head that was ready to explode, and he wants to do. He's thinking the thing. Give me a Flash family book. Make it bi-monthly. I'll do bi-monthly.
Yeah, I don't
Now,
even
do
know
you
what
think
to
that
say.
would help Flash if they made it bi-monthly, or do you think that'd be too much, for them?
I don't think they have the infrastructure to support it right now. Like I
Right.
just I it's just it's right now they can't keep their publishing stuff in alignment at all, and I think that would be a problem.
Agreed. Well, I'm starting. If you notice me yawning so much, I'm starting to get a bit tired, and so I think it's good to just wrap up for tonight, though. But Perch,
Okay.
thank you so much for coming on,
Hey,
and it's been a blast.
absolutely. Let's just try and schedule something monthly,
Agreed.
and Nerdette definitely. I need to get back to you. I need to get back in doing these shows and everything else. It's way better to do it on shows like yours and do my own. I
Mm.
hate doing my own stuff. So it's
Yeah, I
better when I
offer to
can
come
just
on
come on
yours. I
somebody.
offer to come on yours.
Absolutely, dude. But I want you to come on mine. I want you to just run it because I don't want to.
Right.
I don't
I
want to run it.
understand.
That's my problem.
All right. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Perch, for coming on board, and